Hey everyone, it is Pastor Ramona with episode 4 of Are Y'all Reading Y'all Bible? We are in an amazing sermon series called Altered at the Altar because my worship is for real. And this past week, we looked at Gideon and we looked at this place of worshiping for peace. Gideon built an altar to worship God for peace. And it's so amazing where we pick up in the story and in the life of Gideon. We would think naturally, right? We would think how we stand today that when you are talking about being called by God to do some amazing things, that everything in your life has to be perfect, your environment has to be perfect, where you sit has to be perfect, who you are has to be, you have to have so many followers, or you have to have your business has to have so much money in it, or where you are in the company, you have to be in such a seat. But where God uses Gideon shows us that if we truly just open ourselves up and say, Lord, have your way, he can use us in any space as long as we are willing, we have that faith in him, and we move forward. And so when we looked at the verses, we were in Judges chapter 6, and we focused on verses 11 through 26. And we had three big points that we had landed on. But before we get to the points, really fast, just remember that the children of Israel, they have been going back and forth. So even though we look at the book of Judges and we can read like chapter 1, chapter 2 to chapter 6, that window of time is many years, because in that the children of Israel teeter-tottered between being obedient to God and being disobedient to God. When they were obedient to God, they had peace and rest. When they were disobedient, they were oppressed. When they were oppressed, God would raise up a judge and the judge would deliver them, and then they would be good for a little bit and then they would fall off. And so but when we look at the whole amount of time, there was like 160 years of peace. And then there were like over 5 decades of foreign oppression. And so even though we look at it, yes, they were an oppression, but it's a song that says, my good days outweigh my bad days, so I won't complain. So we see that even in their messing up, God still gave them more rest than he gave them oppression. And so even when it was their own fault that they were being oppressed. So point one was really good to me, that it says that God doesn't reject the fearful, he recruits them. And like I said, where Gideon is, he's hiding out, he's in a low place. But when we pick up at verse 12, it says that the angel of the Lord appeared to Gideon and said that Gideon was a mighty man of valor. Before he said anything about his situation or anything about what Gideon was wearing, it was none of that. It was, you are a mighty man of valor. And so how God comes in and tells us right away who we are in him. And now that's for us to grab a hold of. When we look at our life, when we look at how things may be going on around us, we should be able to hold on and to know that we are people of valor, mighty men of valor, a virtuous woman, whatever God has called us to be, we are. And so immediately Gideon, he replies, if the Lord is with us, why has all this stuff happened? And if you read verse 13, you'll see that he says, but our ancestor told us that God performed miracles and he brought them out of Egypt. Where is God today? And then what's so crazy is his response. Gideon is just responding from a place of fear, a place of helplessness. And Gideon forgets that if we read verse 10, if you popped up there, you'll see that God explains why all of this is happening. And when you read it, it's like, because you have been disobedient. And there is a Proverbs, it's like Proverbs 19:3. And if you read it from the New Living Translation, it talks about how people ruin their lives by their own foolishness, and then they are angry at the Lord. This is what's happening, getting angry because there is something going on that shouldn't be going on. And so God really doesn't even pay attention really to what Gideon is saying about all of the mess. Because Gideon goes on about, um, we're not the biggest tribe. I'm not even the biggest within my tribe. And he goes through all of this, and God doesn't, God bypasses all that. The Lord just bypasses all of that. And it's not to dismiss him. That's not the focus. A lot of times we want God to focus on this low part. And he's like, I'm bringing you up. We're not even dealing with that, because if you grab a hold, remember first I said that you are a mighty man of valor. And so let's keep going. And so we have to understand that God cultivates us and he reassures us. And so instead of dragging down with the negative, he's going to bring us up. And so the second point was, peace isn't a location, it's a revelation. Y'all, I love this Bible. And so this whole part here, when Gideon actually builds the altar, he doesn't build it because God had already won the war, but God gave him a word. He knew that God was really in this place and really with him. And so, in a time of famine, in a time of what he did not have, in a time of scarcity, he still gave to the Lord. He still built an altar to the Lord. He still said, I have to give you something because I have to worship you. I have to thank you. And so in this space, Gideon's identity is really being shown to him. And we learned that our identity must be altered before our assignment can be activated. Before God gave him a platform, before he really sent him on the journey, like you're a mighty man of valor, you're going to defeat this army as if it was one man standing before you. Before we get to all of that, I need your identity to be altered. I don't need you to see yourself as small. I don't need you to see yourself as depressed. I don't need you to see yourself as ostracized. I don't need you to see yourself as beat down, bogged down. I don't need you to see yourself broke. I don't need you to see yourself broken. I don't need you to see these negative things that we put on ourselves. The Lord wants us to see ourselves the way that he sees us. And so that was so great because as we talking about this worshiping and the different things of the children of Israel, remember they went back and forth, back and forth. They went back and forth because really they kept returning to idolatry. They kept falling off because they really wasn't grabbing who they are in God. And then it shows that peace without consecration is only temporary. So even if God delivered them and they don't know who God is really and who they are in him, and they really didn't hold on to the true peace of God, they would keep flip-flopping. And so we don't want to fall into that vicious cycle of flip-flopping because we really don't hold on to who God has called us to be. So again, remember, peace isn't a location, it's a revelation. And then the last point was you can't build a true altar until you tear down the false one. Y'all, that part right here, definitely go back and listen to the message because I can preach this again right here. Because what happens is now that Gideon has worshiped for peace and really is starting to get who he is in God, he's still battling. So listen to the message and read the word. I want you to listen to the message, but I really want you to read this word, read the Bible. Because Gideon is still operating, he's still dealing with some fear, he's still dealing with some insecurities, but he is trusting God. He is still saying, I'm just going to show up. I may be fearful, I'm going to show up. I may not be looking the best, but I'm going to show up. Whatever it is, I'm about to go. But he deals with this whole thing because he has to pull down an altar. He has to pull down a false altar, a fake altar to a fake God. And whatever that looks like in our lives, that's what we have to pray for the Lord to reveal to us. And then sometimes it's not even like, Lord, reveal it, because we know what it is. We know what we're worshiping. We know what gets so much of our time. We know that we spend way too much time on the death scroll of social media. We know that we lift up and follow up and, well, not just follow up, you get what I'm saying, in this space of we make idols out of our loved ones, our children, our spouses. Some of us make idols out of ourselves, out of how we look and how we like all these different things. What I drive, we make idols out of places. We make these things. And so God says, you got to pull this stuff down. Because if you're saying that you really, really want me to do something major in your life, I'm not going to share a space with any other God. And that's a dangerous place to be in if you have put anything or anyone above God. And then it was so funny because we talked about how true worship had to confront what we protect. And a lot of times we will protect our sins, our mishaps, what we really don't want to let go of. If God tells us to walk away from this job and like, I cannot do that. And you know, I'm not just saying you just up and doing something. You know, deep down in your heart, you're not supposed to be on this job, this particular job. And God is telling you that you need to leave. It's bothersome on the job. You are getting every sign, every way up and down all over the place that you shouldn't be there, but you keep holding on because it's a fear base that's there. And so it becomes an idol when you're saying, God, I can't trust you. Because that's really what we're saying. I can't trust you to let it go. Look, I'm not talking to y'all about something I have not gone through. I had gone through this and like, Lord, what do you mean? Are you really talking to me? Okay, if you're talking to me, I'm gonna have to pray some more, and having to let go of something that I felt was my identity. I felt that, so I'm talking about a job. It could be a business, it could be an organization, it could be a friendship, it could be some type of relationship, it could be something that is going on that God is saying, you need to let go of this because you have put too much of your faith in this particular event, this particular person, this particular thing, and you have to be able to let go. And so this part of really confronting what we have protected and what we have built these barriers around from God, we have to tear down. And y'all, of course, it messed me up. Worship that doesn't confront your compromise isn't worship, it's a performance. Y'all, that word was so good. I just really enjoyed it. And I just pray that as you dig into the story of Gideon, that you really see how God is blessing us where we are and he's helping us, he's cultivating us, he's teaching us. But we have to also learn that we have to let go and be obedient and trust God in the process. We have to move, even though we may be scared, even though we may not understand, even though, Lord, I still trust you. That's the main thing. I trust you, and you are my peace. My peace. Jesus says, my peace I give you, not as the world that I give it to you. Peace, like all the way on the inside. Not, you know what I mean? It's not like, just like I said in the message, just sitting on the beach and it's like, oh, this is a peaceful place, but peace all in your mind and in your heart in the midst of the storm. Because we know that being a child of the Most High God doesn't mean that we won't go through storms. So peace isn't really the absence of a storm. It's just that we know who's in the storm with us. Y'all, this has been good. I pray again that y'all are reading y'all Bible, get into this word, read on the story of Gideon, and pray that God reveals to you what he is showing you in this word for you for today. Y'all take care and see y'all next episode.